Welcome to the Joe Monroe Show. Now, here's your host, Joe Monroe. Hello, pro wrestling fans, family, and friends. Welcome to a special episode of the Joe Monroe Show. It is I, the one and only Joe Monroe, and today is a very special occasion. This is something that was set up. I kind of have to say this thanks to Austin Diamond. Because this man I have on today for the history of pro wrestling is someone I value, I respect, though it's kind of the opposite with his spawn, I should say. But before I get into my special guest, let's shout out a few sponsors. Very first sponsor, first and foremost, is always Phenomenal Finds ATL. If you're looking for anything retro like pro wrestling, Rugrats, anything like that, check out phenomenalfindsatl.com. They probably have it, as well as our partners and sponsors, Triple Crown Wrestling and Ultimate Championship Wrestling. They are bringing back the sport of professional wrestling as it should be to the state of Kentucky, as well as our partner and sponsor, Mayhem Media. If you're looking for anything entertainment-wise, check out Mayhem Media. We have recently just partnered with them, as well as Les Murphy Painting. If you have any issues with any painting needs, check out Les Murphy and contact him at 734-334-3702. And don't forget, this Friday is another episode of the No Sell Roundtable, where myself and a few other podcasters sit down and we just talk about professional wrestling. Now, all that's out the way. So as you can see, we're a little dolled and diamond up today. We even got the Diamond Cartel logo up. And if you know that logo as well as I do, you know the man I'm talking about we're going to have on tonight. None other than the one, the only, the 1, 2, 3, 4-time Hall of Famer, Scott Diamond. Scott, welcome to the show.
Joe, thank you for having me. Right off the bat, I just want to tell you that I appreciate any time that somebody will invite me to their platform and allow me to speak not only to themselves, but to the fans. So thank you for having me, Joe.
Hey, not a problem at all. Like I said before, I value and respect you. The other one I don't really respect. But
actually, we'll try to stay away from Austin. As I told you, you young men can fight your own battles. And so I told him he's not to be here. Actually, he's out. I had him leave because I wanted I wanted him away because I gave him my word he would not be involved. This would not be a shoot fest on the Joe Monroe Show. So I had him take my Rolex out to have it cleaned.
Oh, it sounds good.
Not on there today, Joe. Not on there today.
Well, actually, Scott, we already got a lot of people wanting to say hello to you. We got Marcus Fon. Hello, brother. How are you, Marcus? Good to see you in here again. We got referee James Adams. James, good to see you. He says, hi, Scott. How are you? And
hi, James. How you doing, Marcus? Semper Fi, Marcus.
And we also got my good friend and a friend of yours, which we'll get into that history a little later, Joe Hamlin down there in Joe.
Oh, good old Joe. How you doing, Joe?
And we actually have the better half of Marcus, at least she says she is, and I believe her, Kelly Fon on here. Hey, Kelly, how are you doing?
Kelly, how are you doing, young lady?
And we have the best photographer in the wrestling business, Crystal, on here. Crystal, how are you? I hope you're keeping.
He does a great job.
Phenomenal job. No pun intended to our sponsor, Phenomenal Funds. But let's go ahead and let's get it started. We're going to talk about you today. And what we're going to do, I'm going to do something here. We're going to give you a solo layout today because this is all about you. Awesome. And there we go. Yes, sir. You'll still be able to hear me.
You're too kind.
So, Scott, first question I always ask, how in the world did you get into this crazy sport called professional wrestling?
Well, Joe, let's go back and talk about a year that you probably know very well, 1971. In 1971, I was in the Atlanta airport. Scott Diamond's always been a jet setter. I flew on more DC-10s than Ric Flair. Well, okay, no, not more than Ric Flair. I was traveling from Atlanta to Cincinnati, and I happened to see Bobo Brazil in the Atlanta airport in 1971. And back in the day, we called him Superfly. And brother, he was looking so Superfly, it was unbelievable. He had on a long fur coat, a big wide brim hat, and he was smoking a long white ivory pipe. Now, back in those days, you were allowed to smoke in the airport. And when you see a man as big as Bobo Brazil Sr., he was a mountain of a man. And when you see a guy that big wearing a fur coat, smoking a big white ivory pipe, you know he's one bad dude. And I looked up at my uncle and I said, I don't know what his job is, but whatever it is, that is what Scott Diamond is going to do one day. And it just happened to be professional wrestling.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So how big he was? I say you say he was a mountain man, so I'm going to guess he's probably about 6 foot.
He was going about 6'2", probably about 350, somewhere thereabouts, 300.
Right. Okay. Wow. God, that is big, man. So what was your what was the first promotion you worked for?
You know, that's one thing that you should never forget. I started in the South, so at the moment it escapes me because I started and then I got out for a while to raise my children and came back. I can tell you the first promotion in Kentucky that I worked for when I came to Kentucky was WCCW, Wildcat Championship Wrestling, ran by Santa and his daughter. You know, we had a long relationship. Some of the stuff that Santa was known for as a promoter was good. Some of the things that he was known for was not so good. But in good, great Scott Diamond fashion, I came in, I took over, and you know, the boys in the back started gravitating over there because the Scott Diamond was there, and so it wasn't very long that not only was I main eventing over there, that I was actually running the whole daggone company.
Yeah, and rest in peace to Santa Claus.
Yes, rest in peace. He's not with us any longer.
Yeah, he's
great wrestling fan. He was a great wrestling fan. You know, Santa and I, we had our ups and our downs, no doubt. You know, he and I bumped heads a few times. But I'm happy to say that when at the time of his passing, you know, we had buried all that. Actually, we had buried the hatchet many years before his passing, and I'm glad that we did because, again, Santa was not the greatest of promoters. He was a good promoter. He was not a great promoter, but one thing that he was great at, and that was Santa was a great wrestling fan, and that's what this sport is all about giving everything they got to the fans. And Santa was the epitome of a wrestling fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed he was, and he helped out a lot of people that came through Kentucky. So let's go ahead and let's get into Kentucky, Scott. Let's talk about KEPW, shall we?
Let's do it.
So what started that up for KEPW?
KEPW. Matter of fact, right here is the last title that I ever won. Mm-hmm. I beat Adrian Alexander for the Kentucky Elite Championship. It was a fight for my life. He beat me, really. Quite honestly, this young kid, he beat me from pillar to post. But, you know, Scott Diamond's very resourceful. So at the end, when I was, you know, I was struggling a little bit there at the end, and it was a championship match. It was my last match, so certainly I wanted to go out on top. I didn't want to lose. And there for a moment when I seen that, you know, there was a possibility that I may lose, you know, in good, again, in Scott Diamond fashion. I've been known to do this many times over the years. Austin threw me the cane from ringside. I captured the cane in the air, brought it down on the back of Adrian Alexander's head. He went down. The ref didn't see it. And, of course, if the ref didn't see it, it's legal. And, a matter of fact, the big Doss man, the CEO of Kentucky Elite Pro Wrestling, was actually the special guest referee. He was the enforcer referee so that nobody would interfere. And, you know, he just happened to have his back turned for a moment, and I was able to catch the cane and come down over the top of the head of Adrian Alexander. And my very last singles match, I came away the Kentucky Elite Wrestling Elite Champion. Kentucky Elite is very near and dear to my heart. Great, great company. And your question was how it came about. It was birthed by Bobby Doss. At the time, I was suspended in Kentucky, and you know, Scott Diamond over the years have been suspended several times for excessive violence, which I don't understand because excessive violence is what I've always been known for. And so I went and was reinstated on in May of 17. And the first person to call me was the Big Doss Man. Big Doss Man said, I've got this company. We've run about 3 or 4 shows, and we're looking for a guy to take the helm because, you know, as a wrestling business is any business is a hard business to run. You got to be in so many places. You got to wear many, many hats. And so the Big Doss Man said, hey, you know, I'm running my butt off, but if I have you to run the back of the building, maybe I could run the front of the house and we could come up with this great product. And of course, we met, we signed a contract, we shook hands on it, and the rest is history. Scott Diamond started running Kentucky Elite Pro Wrestling, and the Big Doss Man was able to sit in the back and do what promoters do, which is, you know, go out there and flag the towns, put out the flyers, you know, pay the taxes, pay the bills, and all that kind of stuff. And Scott Diamond took the helm, and he hired a slew of wrestlers from all over the world, and they came in and they put on great events. And I was grateful to be able to be at the helm of Kentucky Elite Pro Wrestling. We had a 6-year run, and of course, the Big Doss Man and myself, we're getting old. I'm getting ready to turn 60, and actually, the Big Doss Man is just he's just right behind me. He's just a couple of months younger than I am, and so we started getting old. We started backing away from it, and so we decided to sell Kentucky Elite Pro Wrestling.
And that was a big big company in the state of Kentucky. And well, Jonathan Dobbs, or as we know as JD Thunder, says because you're an oaf.
Look, let me tell you something. I'm not here to get all pissed off tonight, JD. You little redneck hillbilly, you take your ass somewhere and stick your tongue up some cow's ass, because I don't want nothing out of you tonight. But I'm going to be in your neck of the woods here soon, and when I get there, I hope I see you, because I owe you one, JD. I owe you one, pal.
Okay, calm down, gentlemen, calm down. I know. But Johnny Swade said Scott Diamond is a great man.
My interview time. How rude.
Yeah, that was a little rude, JD. Sorry, Scott. I apologize. Sorry. Johnny Swade, though, said Scott Diamond's a great man and a great mentor. Thank you. And Chris Blade, shout out Chris Blade. Scott Diamond is the GOAT, the greatest of all time.
Thank you. Thank you both. Johnny Swade is another guy I took under my wing for a little while. And, you know, I was a horrible guy at times, but through adversity, you know, it brings out the best in you. And so when I first met Johnny Swade, he was trying to get me to book him for some events. And quite honestly, I told him before I would book him on any event, I would wrestle in all 6 matches, and I would wrestle against the Invisible Man, because he wasn't worth me putting him in my ring. He's come a long way since then. He's gotten better. And so, you know, Johnny Swade is one of those guys that you can say, like a lot of guys, was he the greatest when he came in? No. Is he the greatest now? Maybe not. But he's gotten better, and that's all you can ask. Because if you can progressively get better, you're going in the right direction, and that's exactly what Johnny Swade did. He took those horrible things that I had said to him. He took all that anger, and he got into the arenas, and he started training harder. He started working with people. I put him in the ring with people, you know, Frank the Tank and some of the guys that could bring him to that next level. Johnny Bad, you know. So thank you, Johnny Swade, and keep trucking it, kid, because you're doing a good thing. And you know, Blade, I appreciate the kind words. You know, all we can do is go out there and do our job and hope that somebody appreciates it. And that's what I've always tried to do. I've always been 120%.
We also have Joe Hamlin saying you are such a legend. Thank you, sir. And James Adams said you gave him his first ref job. Actually, that's a very pretty interesting story you can tell here. What was that story about, giving James his first ref job?
Joe Hamlin, thank you very much, brother. Much appreciated. James Adams. So here's a guy. He again. James Adams is a guy that wrestling fans should look at. because he is the epitome of what a wrestling fan is. He drove hundreds of miles, probably still does, hundreds and hundreds of miles just to watch different organizations run their events. And not all of us can do that. The ones that can, and that again is another sign of a wrestling fan personified. He didn't stay in a 50-mile radius of his home. He went everywhere to pick up as much knowledge of the wrestling business, as much wrestling business knowledge that he could. And then finally he came and Santa gave him a start as a security guard. Wasn't enough. James he just had that hunger. And security is a very important job. Let's do not underplay security. Wrestling is a big puzzle. Many pieces, but every piece is important, just as security is important. But that did not feed the hunger that James had in his gut. So he came to me and he expressed that he wanted to do more in the wrestling business. And I said, you know what? I think you'd make a great referee. Let's train you to be a referee. James jumped in, hook, line, and sinker. He was all for it. And now he's refereed all over the country. And I was in the right place at the right time. And I've always been fortunate to be able to, see things in people that maybe they didn't see in themselves. And I seen that James could be a good referee. And by God, he didn't disappoint me at all. Not at all.
Right. And Chris Blade wants to say, don't forget Andrew Browning. Scott was a big part of his life, as well as shout out Do. Yeah, shout out Andrew.
Andrew Do Browning. I have been with that kid through good times and bad times. He has had a tumultuous life, but he never let it get him down. He still to this day has not let it get him down. He too is the pinnacle when you think about what a wrestling fan is. Do Browning followed me, and for years we were adversaries. He couldn't stand, he always gave us our respect, but he was not a fan of the Diamond Cartel. I even one year I gave him a Diamond Cartel shirt and stuff, and he held true. He was a big Dolph Ziggler fan and some things that I wasn't really a big fan of, and he stuck to his guns no matter how many times I would smack the hat off his head or something like that. Every week Andrew Do Browning was in that arena. I looked at him probably for 5 years out here in Georgetown at the bingo hall every Sunday. He never missed. And every Sunday, I can tell you where he was at. He was in the front row, and he was right up in Scott Diamond's face. Andrew Do Browning, nothing but love for you, my friend.
Also have Ryan Mosley of The Final Count says Diamond Cartel for life.
My good old friend Ryan. Much love, my friend. Much love.
So, hang on. We got Chris Crow. Oh, no, Chris Crow. Really, this guy? Hang on. Also, he states, and I quote, also Scott Diamond calls it how he sees it. Not many people out there is like that anymore. Wait, I do that to you, Chris. Never mind.
And Chris is right. I met Chris a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, and he and his tag partner, they were new into the scene, but man, were they hungry. And they were doing some great things, but they were also doing some things that were not so great. And so that's the thing. When the wrestlers come through the curtain, they want the vets to look at them and they want them to critique their match, but they don't want to hear the bad things. Scott Diamond's a guy that I'll tell you everything that you've done wrong. Then I'm going to turn around and tell you everything you did right. Because you don't just tell somebody what they did wrong. You tell them also what they did wrong, right. There's got to be a balance there. But if you've done something wrong, and I've told bookers this, bookers and promoters, they've gone out and wrestled and come back and said, Scott Diamond, what'd you think? And I've said, hey, brother, after the first 30 seconds, I didn't watch it. Because as a booker and a promoter, you should hold yourself accountable to a higher standard. And you didn't. I could see that from your work. So I stopped watching it. You got to tell them the truth. If you don't, we're creatures of habit. And I studied sociology and psychology in college. And psychology, Dr. Freud says that we are creatures of habit. So therefore, if we get in the habit of doing things wrong, we're going to continue to do them wrong and think that they're right. That's not going to happen on Scott Diamond's watch. I'm going to tell you exactly what you did wrong. And again, though, I will tell you what you've done right, but I am not afraid to tell you what you've done wrong.
No, indeed, you're not. You even told me when I came to your birthday bash about a year or two ago, and thank you for inviting me for that, sir.
I thought you had that $1,000 won, Joe.
I was close.
It was close.
I was close, but I do appreciate that. That was awesome. But I even asked you, and you gave me your feedback, and I appreciate that. And I wish,
Joe, I told you the truth, didn't I?
Yes, sir, you did. You definitely did, and that made me respect you even more. Because I wish there was more people like that, which 9 times out of 10, there is people like that in this industry. But let's talk about your accomplishment. Before we get into your wrestling accomplishments, let's talk about the stuff you got behind you, sir. You are 100% a Marine through and through, hoorah, and a devil dog. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about your time in the Marine Corps. What was that like?
I love my Marine Corps, Joe. The Marine Corps afforded me many hats. It taught me to be a man. It taught me what honor was all about. It taught me what integrity was. There's not a day that I don't wake up that I don't thank my Marine Corps for making me the man that I am today. Because every day I do something that the Marine Corps taught me to do, whether it's the way that I walk, or whether it's the way that I carry myself. My whole life is circled around the Marine Corps because the Marine Corps, my mother may have given me life, but the Marine Corps showed me what real life was all about. Marines can choke you to death in one hand and rock a baby to sleep in the other, and we can do that all at the same time. You have to be able to do many things, and you have to be able to do things that people are not willing to do. Unfortunately, that is the way of life. The Marine Corps, I owe so much to the Marine Corps. As you said, I've got many congressional awards and medals and things back here. Excuse me. For things that's got to be done, Joe. For things that had to be done. And I'm just thankful that I'm still here today, and I'm thankful that the Marine Corps taught me how to do what I needed to do and to stay alive. And the greatest thing about the Marine Corps is we go worldwide, and we give democracy and freedom to anybody that wants it. It's there, and we are the police of the world to see that everybody gets that democracy and that freedom that they so desire. I can sit here from the days of Tun Tavern in 1775, which is when the Marine Corps was founded, November the 10th, 1775. Hey, and how appropriate. The Marine Corps was founded in Tun's Tavern, an alcohol joint, a bar, a cafe, however you want to call it. The Marine Corps was founded in a bar, and the first Marines were a bunch of drunks. Marines today are still a bunch of drunks, but nobody does it better because nobody drinks from the time they get secured maybe at midnight till 4:30 and then gets up at 5:30 and runs 10 miles. Or nobody gets drunk, lays out for the 2 days that they have on liberty. 48 hours they stay drunk, but then the next 48 hours, they're on a submarine, they're on a ship, they're on an airplane going somewhere to give the freedom to those people that deserve it. And they do it with a hangover, and they do it better than anybody ever will do it. The Marines have been first in almost anything you can think about, Joe. The first man in space, Senator Glenn, he was a Marine. this new space army or whatever they're calling it now. The first people in are Marines. When shit hits the fan, the first people in are the Marines. The Marines are a special breed, Joe. And for that, I thank my Corps, because they have made me a special breed. And had they not, I would not have been able to enjoy this great wrestling career that I have enjoyed. I would not have been able to hold together everyday life, because everyday life, you know yourself, you're a father, you're a husband. Everyday life throws us curveballs every day. And how you take those curveballs and bounce back, that's what makes you a man. And the Marine Corps, again, I owe it all to them. They taught me how to do that, because a lot of people, they give up on life. And when you give up on life, and we've all been there, but when you've given up on life and you think there's nothing left, you're forgetting the people that you're leaving behind. So you've got to get that mindset. Every day that you have something go wrong, that's just something that's going to make you come back tomorrow 10 times better. And that's what the Marine Corps has done for me. And I love my Marine Corps.
And that's definitely shown with your wrestling career as well. Again, Scott, thank you so much for your service, sir. And anybody that's watching, if you have served or are still serving, thank you so much for your service. But Scott, that left a very big impression on you, and I think that helped you mentally for the pro wrestling world, because
it certainly did.
You gotta have that kind of that Marine mentality to be a professional wrestler, traveling and everything, but entertaining the fans with the on-off stuff.
And we was beating each other's ass. If we wasn't fighting in battle somewhere, we were beating each other's ass. So and let me tell you, my last duty station, I was on a Navy base. I was in nuke security. I don't want to touch too much on that, but while I was on the nuclear security base, it is just like any other place in the Marine Corps. It's very stressful, very stressful. Right. You cannot imagine the weight that is put upon your shoulders when you're protecting the weapons that could destroy the entire world. Did you hear that, Joe?
Yes,
destroy the entire world, blow up the earth into many, many pieces. We could become Krypton with the weapons that we were securing, if you were.
Right.
And so with that stress, you got to play hard when you work hard. And let me tell you, when we came off duty, there wasn't a Marine that wasn't rolling around on the floor, popping one guy, popping another guy. And the biggest mistake that any Navy guy ever made on a Navy base with one Marine on it was to get in the way when a Marine is having a scrap with another Marine.
Right.
Because two Marines will stop fighting, beat that Navy guy up, that civilian up, whoever intervened, they will stop fighting each other, beat them up, and then come back to fighting each other again.
Yeah, that sounds a whole lot like the business.
It's exactly like the wrestling business.
Well, Chris Blade message again. He said Adrian is also great, and running EWA and psychology part is great. But then again, he learned from the GOAT himself, Scott Diamond. Diamonds are forever.
Thank you. Adrian Alexander's arguably the greatest student I ever had. I'm very proud of him. Is he making some mistakes? Who doesn't? But is he doing great things? You're damn right he is. Elite Wrestling Alliance is doing great things. They just moved to a new venue in Richmond down there in Richmond, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Wow, the last house in Richmond, Kentucky, they packed it out, and I think they will continue to do so. He learned some stuff from me, and he learned from some other folks. But his backstage business. It's funny when I watch him now, because every time I see him throw a water bottle and I ask him, where'd you learn that from? Of course, but EWA and Adrian Alexander doing good things. If you get an opportunity and you're in Richmond, I think last Saturday they actually were in Richmond, so they won't be back until next month. but they've got some good things going on. So if you see Adrian Alexander on the marquee, definitely lay your money down, get your ticket, because he's a guy that gives 120%, just like Scott Diamond. Because if he hadn't to give 120%, I wouldn't have pushed him through.
Right. So you talked about the title, the blue title it's on the right of me, probably your
Yes.
left.
Yeah,
But
the elite.
let's talk about the other title that's on the other side of you. Tell us a little bit about that one, sir.
This is the Southern Heavyweight Championship. We were undefeated for this championship. I did not win this as a wrestler. I won this as a manager. I traveled with a great guy, 20-year veteran. His name is the Matador. And the Matador was a great competitor. Now he's hanging out with Hank Williams Jr. down there around Muscle Shoals and the Alabama Roll Tide. You know, they're enjoying some great fishing there on the Gulf. They're sitting back watching the Roll Tide take ball game after ball game, and they're listening to some great music from around Muscle Shoals. So he's a great, great guy, the Matador. And I'm kind of jealous of him right now. Now I've got an open door policy. Hopefully I'll get to go down there this summer and give it a look. But as you know, Joe, being on the road all the time, you get very little leisure time. Even to the point that I can tell you, I have 3 children. And I've missed more of their birthdays than I would like to admit. You know, I've been married for 22 years, and I've missed more anniversaries than I can count. I've missed Thanksgiving dinner with my children. On Christmas, I always opened up Christmas, 8 o'clock in the morning. By noon, I was back on the road again. So there's been a lot of sacrifices, and but it's been a hell of a ride. And the Matador, Adrian Alexander, the Big Doss Man, all these guys that I have had the blessing to come in contact with. Does it take the place of all those birthdays, Christmases, and Thanksgiving? No, it does not. But I think and I hope that my children now understand, now that they're all grown, that Dad was just out there trying to pay the bills, And again, the Marine Corps gave me that push that when you got it, sometimes you got to do what you don't want to do. And did I want to leave my kids on Christmas? I surely did not want to leave my kids at Christmas. Because I'm staying up all night Christmas Eve putting all this stuff together. I want to see them use it, but by the time they would open it up, I'd have to be on the road. But the Marine Corps, it gave me that strong mindset that said, hey, do you want to stay here with Christmas with your children? Yes, you do. But the thing that you got to do is you got to provide for them. So I climbed in that car, and I spent Christmas Day on the road.
Right. No, I totally get that. Trust me. Like you said, I got a family, my family, and it can be hard, but hopefully when I get older, they understand. But not only championships, you've won multiple ones across Kentucky and other states, but you're also, I think, a big achievement for you. You're not only a 1, 2, 3, but you're a 4-time Hall of Famer. Can you name those Hall of Fames you are in real quick?
Oh, certainly. Southern Indiana, Championship Wrestling Hall of Fame. So I'm in the West Virginia Big Time Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. I'm, of course, Kentucky Elite Pro Hall of Fame. And then the Doomsday. So that's Doomsday from Tennessee, Kentucky Elite from Kentucky, Southern Indiana, and West Virginia. So I have 4 Hall of Fames from 4 different states.
So that should tell everybody enough about Scott Diamond right there.
Scott Diamond busts his ass. If you pay me 1 cent, no, this is not a dig on you, Terry England. But if you pay Scott Diamond 1 cent, you're not going to get 110% out of me. You're going to get 120% out of me. And so I'm grateful that, not only companies within states, but the states themselves, in different states, they appreciated what I had done for them. And I appreciate them taking time out because let's face it, nobody says, hey, let's go put so-and-so into the Hall of Fame. Excuse me. These rings, they cost. And all of that cost come out of the promoter and the booker's pockets. They do that out of the kindness of their heart. No one says that they have to put you into the Hall of Fame. And so for the fact that 4 people in 4 different states, 4 companies, if you will, in 4 different states, thought to put that acknowledgement to Scott Diamond. I can't thank him enough. I can't thank him enough.
Right.
I just doing my job.
Right. You were just doing your job and kicking butt all around the United States.
Yeah, I mean, just like I told these guys, when I got these congressional medals and I got a couple from the president and stuff, I told him the same thing. Thank you, sir, but I was just doing my job. So that's the simple fact of it. I was just doing my job.
Chris, he's not on the show, but I'll go ahead and we'll talk about it here. Speaking of your kids and what about Austin following in your footsteps now that he is wrestling?
I'm very proud of him.
I was fixing to say, Scott, he's your son, so you're more welcome to talk about him. So you're good. Sorry.
Well, look, Joe, I gave you my word. He will not be on this program. As I said earlier, I sent him out to drop my watch off so it could be clean.
Right.
Because I gave you my word. And Scott Diamond's word is gold. I told you he will not be here. He will not be bad-mouthing Joe Monroe or the Joe Monroe Show tonight. And I appreciate you giving me the open door to go ahead and speak to him, because that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few people now that are second-generation wrestlers. And I'm very proud of Austin to be wanting to follow in my footsteps. I hope that he can stay as injury-free as possible. We already know that it's not a question of if injuries will happen, it's a question of when. His very first match, he blew his meniscus out. And here's where a lot of the pride comes from, Joe. Even with a torn meniscus at 15 years old, because, see, he done something that Joe Nuxall done that most people will never do again. And that is play a professional sport at 15 years of age. He entered into the squared circle at 15 years old, blew out his meniscus halfway through the match, and he still wrestled another 6 minutes. That's not only pride from a father, that's pride from a promoter, a wrestler, a man. Hell, let's put it where it is. That's respect from a man, the same respect that Triple H got when he blew out his quad and finished the match. Austin finished his match with a blown meniscus, and that takes intestinal fortitude, and he's got it. And for that, I'm very proud. He's undefeated thus far in singles competition. I should say there was one disqualification I got involved in, but his shoulders have never been pinned to the mat. So I'm very proud of that as well. I just hope that, again, that he can stay in the gym. He works out every day. And I hope that he can stay in the gym. And I hope he keep working out. He trains every day. I hope he keeps training, because, the harder you train, the more you work out, the less mistakes you make, the less injuries you have. Even people that don't make mistakes have injuries. But if you're going to get up there and you don't hone your craft to the best of your ability, you're going to have more mistakes and you're going to have more injuries. And that, of course, is what we want to alleviate and not have, is injuries. So I like to I hope that I can stay around and see his journey. I've got some health issues. I'm getting older, but I hope that I can be here and hopefully see him win one of these great championships one day. He's already had one championship match of which he won, but he was a paid mercenary, so he didn't get to keep the championship belt, but he did win. So I'm very excited for his wrestling career. He's a good-looking man. He's got the gift of gab, but that's just not enough. He's just got to continue to work every day like he's doing, and roll the dice and hope that he can get some good matches with some good people, and that will help elevate him to the next level. And again, hopefully my health will allow me to be here and help him elevate as high as that he can go.
Right. And we got JD commenting back. Scott, would you like me to?
Now, look, I'm telling you, I didn't sign on for this, Joe.
I'm sorry. Would you like me to read the comment though? It's totally up
to
you.
Please do.
He said, "Hell, if you got any, God, it's actually kind of funny. Hell, if you got anything from Terry England that shows miracles happen." Well, yeah. And Larry
have
the
to
F.
agree with
Hey,
him there. I have to agree with him there.
yeah, come on. I thought we stopped with the Larry the Leprechaun stuff now, JD. For those who don't know, I know, Scott, you know, JD was my very first guest for the History of Pro Wrestling Wrestlers Edition. And, yeah, he just made another appearance. I apologize. At least he was nice this time,
Hey,
Scott.
let me put this out there too. You know, as I said earlier, I'll tell you what you do wrong. I'll tell you what you do right. I am not knocking JD Thunder as a wrestler. I'm not. He has been down the roads. He has paid the price. He's paid the price on more than one occasion. He and I have been in the ring many a time. But the last time that we were in the ring, I felt a little duped. And for that, I don't tolerate. So I am not taking anything away from JD Thunder whatsoever. Whatsoever. I'm not taking anything away from JD whatsoever. JD, he can wrestle his butt off. JD can fight his butt off in the parking lot. But JD can also get under my skin. And so giving credit where credit is due. He's a Hall of Famer. He should be. He's done a lot of great things. Rest his soul. He was great friends with my good friend Tracy Smothers. Hell, Tracy Smothers was sometimes the guy in the middle between us. So I'm not taking anything away from JD. I'm just saying, JD, I owe you one.
All right, we'll just leave it at that. Ryan Mosley says you can take Scott Diamond's word to the bank too. That's true. And looks like Andrew Dew Browning's here. Dew, how you doing? And he said diamonds are forever. And he said he not to interrupt Scott Diamond. And he's wanting to know how are you doing, Scott?
Well, you know, I'm doing okay. Like I said, I've had some health issues. I spent all day at the hospital yesterday, and having those things checked out and everything. And you know, I'm as good as can be expected. Um, you know, there's some things that the Marine Corps taught me that's coming back to haunt me now, and drinking is one of them. So all you guys out there that are, you know, on your way to becoming an alcoholic, take it from an old recovering alcoholic. Put the bottle down, pick up your photo album, love your children, love your wrestling, do your thing, but you don't need to do it with alcohol.
That is true, sir. We'll get to questions here in a little bit, Ron. But first and foremost, I want to ask a few. We're going to pinpoint some people you mentioned here. First and foremost, every person I have interviewed, wrestler-wise, has a Tracy Smothers story. What is I swear, I'm about to do a segment and just cut it into every interview I've done and just make a video clips of just nothing but Tracy Smothers stories. What is, if you want to talk about it, what is your favorite Tracy Smothers story and or interaction?
I have two. I learned a lot from Tracy Smothers. Tracy Smothers was a hell of a man. I had more respect for Tracy Smothers than I do 98% of the people in the wrestling business. I don't think Tracy Smothers got his due. I think Tracy Smothers ought to be in every Hall of Fame across this land. Tracy Smothers went in and did things that other wrestlers didn't want to do because there wasn't enough money in it. Tracy Smothers wasn't about always the money. Tracy Smothers was about bringing the love of wrestling to fans. And I'm talking to Guam. I'm talking about all these little islands that probably only had 500 people on the entire island. Nobody wanted to go there because there was no money involved. Tracy Smothers hit every one of those. He did the island hopping campaign, the same as the Marine Corps did in WW2. Tracy Smothers was one of the greatest men to ever lace up a pair of boots. And I had the privilege of not only inducting Tracy Smothers into the Kentucky Elite Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, I had the honor of Tracy Smothers also. And he got me. You got me. You got me. He knew they were going to induct me with him, but he didn't tell me. So when I inducted him, I thought that was the end. I was trying to hurry everything up so we could get things going, the event going. And he said, oh, wait a minute. The big boss man said, I want to say a couple of things. Trey said, I want to say a couple of things. And I said, guys, we ain't got time for that. And then the big boss man and Tracy Smothers inducted me into the Kentucky Elite Hall of Fame. One of the greatest nights of my wrestling career. But now here's my I'm sorry, go ahead.
JD Thunder. JD Thunder wants to mention, thank you for talking about my brother. God, I miss him every day. I know, JD. I need to get JD and a few of you back on here, and we're just going to have a roundtable about Tracy Smothers one day.
I would love that. Scott
But
Diamond,
go ahead.
count me in.
Sounds good, Scott. But what's your second favorite story about Tracy Smothers here?
My second favorite story about Tracy Smothers is this. Now, picture this, if you will, in my Rod Serling voice, right? It's 3:30 in the morning, between 3 and 3:30 in the morning. Scott Diamond is sitting at his desk, writing his heart out, like I've done for many, many years. I wasn't very good at texting. I'm still not very good at texting. A lot of the old guys back in the day, even still some of us today, when we're on the roads and, we're pulling 16 hours on the road, it's getting tired, but we can't afford a $50 room at the Motel 6. So we're sitting in the passenger seat while the other guy's driving. Well, he's tired too. He's been on the road 16 hours. Both of you can't sleep at the same time. So this is what I get between 3 and 3:30 in the morning. And I'm not talking about once. I'm talking about, when I say this, we're talking about multiple times over the years. I'm talking about Tracy. So I get this text. My eyes are watering. My eyes are dry. I'm tired. I've still got 3 or 4 events to write. I get, hey, what are you doing? My response always was, what the hell you think I'm doing? It's 3:30 in the morning. Always his response was, well, you're not sleeping, so I'm going to call you. So Tracy would call me, and we'd stay on the phone for hours, until he got home. I loved it, and I wish that I could have one more 3:30 morning with Tracy Smothers. Because Tracy, I'll answer the phone, brother, if you'll call. Yes, sir, I will. Sorry, I saved his last text. I was supposed to go to see him on Saturday. This was the Saturday before he passed. He passed on a Wednesday. I'll never forget it. A horrible day. I'll never forget it. That Saturday, I'm on the telephone with him. And I said, Tracy, I'm going to drive up and see you today, man. I ain't seen you in a couple of weeks. I know that old nasty cancer's coming back and showing its face to you again. I said, brother, I know you're back on chemo, and I know that, it's making you sick as a dog. So I'm going to come see you. And hell, maybe we can sit back and listen to little Charlie Daniels. He said, Scott, I'm really just not feeling up to it this weekend, man. He said, I'll tell you what, though. We'll just plan for it next Saturday. You drive on up here to the house. We only live a couple of 100 miles from each other. And when you got a friend, brother, if you got one friend, you're royalty. I was fortunate enough to have a couple, and one of them being Tracy Smothers. So 100, 200 miles meant nothing to drive to see a friend if you've got a true friend. So I said, well, Tracy, since you're sick, if you're not feeling up to it, get your rest, take your vitamins and get your strength back. And I will drive up next Saturday, and man, we'll just make a day of it. And of course, we know now that Saturday never came. And if I could have one thing back, I'll tell you, I'd have said, Tracy, I know you don't feel good, brother, but I'm coming up today. I wish I would have went ahead and went. He was a great man. Great man. Make no bones about it. I don't care who you are out there. I don't care who you work with, who you think you are. If you had heat with Tracy Smothers, it was your fault.
Yeah, and that's what everybody's been telling me when they would talk about him. I feel like I didn't get to meet him personally, but every story I hear, I feel like I'm like, this guy, me and him would definitely get along. He's a good old country boy. Oh man,
he was the Robertson County redneck, buddy. Let me tell you, he certainly was. Long before he was a thug, he was a redneck. He's a bad dude, let me tell you. And he's seen some bad dudes. Hey, look, Tracy had some stories, unbelievable stories. You know, talking about the time Sting got knocked out in the locker room and things like that. Tracy was on some great events, had some great stories, you know, and he was the nucleus of a lot of stories. Hey, where else can you find a guy? And look, I'm not talking about that BS that they tried to do with him and have him wrestle that fourth bear, a guy in a bear suit. That was deplorable. That was man, they were making a mockery of what Tracy had already done. Tracy wrestled 3 live bears. 3 live bears. Go look up a Kodiak. Go look up a brown bear. Go look up a black bear. You just go look up a bear and then tell me you're going to get in the ring and wrestling. Tracy did it not only once, but 3 times. Tracy Smothers was a bad dude.
I agree with you. And Andrew Dew Browning said he was thinking about his mom last night.
I'm here for you, buddy. I'm here for you. Definitely. All you got to do is reach out. I'm glad I could be there when she passed, and I will be there for you as long as, you know, my heart keeps ticking.
But let's move. The next person I want to know of how in the heck you've met. Terry England. I hate to say it on my show, but Terry England.
Oh, Lord. Why do we got to bring up Terry England? Look, he's sharp as an egg, but he's just as rotten. I think it's got to be better. Hey, you back?
Hey, man, what's the guy? Are you actually talking to him?
Wait, hang on, Scott. No.
Look, I told you this is not going to happen. Now you either take your ass over there and sit down, or I'll give you another one. We don't do this. This is not how I run this family. I told you were not going to be on here. You're going to honor what I say, or I'm going to smack the shit out of you again. Now go sit down. We'll handle this after we get off of this. Just like we do family business, not in front of people. I'm sorry, Joe. Sorry for that disruption.
That's completely fine. I'll shut up. You handled business as promised. Okay. Sorry. JD also said he wants to talk. What's that? The hospital with him every day for at least 2 months of his life. Some more than once. Times more than once. The first show I done after he passed away, the first person I saw was you, Scott.
Yes. And, you know, again, I have to give credit where credit is due. You know, JD, he too was a great friend of Tracy Smothers. And like I said, sometimes be Tracy in between us. But just because I have disagreement with JD doesn't mean that I don't have love for him. I have love and respect for him. Just like 2 brothers. Sometimes you got to go out behind the barn and take care of business. And that's the deal with JD and myself.
And Ron said, told you Scott is a man of his word. I know he is, Ron. I know Scott. Me and Scott, again, we have a very mutual respect for each other and each other's careers. But
Terry, I'm not going to have my name besmirched. Austin knows how I raised him. He knows. We don't handle family business in front of nobody. And I do not have anybody coming on and doing something that I already gave my word that was not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I'm still the head of this family, and as long as I am, he'll do what I say. And when the time comes that he doesn't do what I say, then we'll have to deal with that then. But for right now, he's just over there sucking on a bloody lip, and he got what he deserved because I told him already beforehand, Joe, we wasn't going to have this. We wasn't going to have this. Now he's sitting over there. He's mad as hell, looking at me like he wished he could just beat my brains in. But it's not only business, it's family. And that's the way I handle my family. I gave you my word, Joe. And I'm a man of my word.
You are indeed, sir. Indeed you are. And Dew here, he says he won't forget the day you came running to me after he had an anxiety attack.
Yes. And as odd as it is, he was at a Kentucky Elite pro wrestling event. He got really excited in the event. You know, again, Dew is a great wrestling fan. We knew something wasn't right. You know, the show, the event had just ended, and he was showing signs of of an anxiety attack. And so we tried to talk to him, and we thought that he was calming down and he was okay. And he went to the parking lot to go to his, he was riding with a friend. And then while they were walking to the friend's car, he had an anxiety attack. And, unfortunately, we had to call the ambulance, and I had to call and speak with his grandmother and stuff. And, just like when his mother passed away, I was there for him that night. And Andrew Dew Browning, I'll be there for you, brother, from now until I take my last breath. All you got to do is reach out, and I'm there for you. And please say hello to your grandmother for me and give her my love.
Yep, definitely.
I don't care. I told you. I don't care. So just sit there and stop talking. I don't want to hear it.
Why are you even doing this, man? Why are you on his show, dog?
You heard what I said. Don't make me come over there. I'm sorry, Joe.
No, you're completely fine, sir. But we'll speak on how all this started later before we end the show. But Terry England, let's talk about you talk about someone
back to Terry.
Talking about someone that's crazier than a March hare. Let's talk about Terry England for just a moment.
I'll tell you what. He's as nutty as a fig tree, that's for sure. Terry England, I could say so much about Terry England. I met him down south. Sean Christopher introduced us, and we had this group of men that, again, I was the head of. I was the managerial brainchild for that, which was called the New Age Horsemen. The Diamond Cartel we were hot all over the country. We were hot. Hell, all over the world. We sold merchandise all over the world. And so Sean Christopher came to me and he said, "Hey, I got this idea, and you're the only man that can pull it off." And I said, "Okay, Sean, hey man, you're Showtime Sean Christopher. I mean, what do you need for Scott Diamond? I mean, what do you need from me to pull something off?" He said, "Brother, I got the wrestling and I can do that. And I've got a couple of other guys, that are great wrestlers, but man, we need guidance." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what I'll do is, the five of us will get together, and I'll listen to what you guys have in mind. And if I feel like I'm a fit, then, of course I'll be all in. But if I feel that I'm not a fit, I had to be honest with you. If I feel that I'm not a fit, it's something I'm not going to do, because I'm not going to tarnish what I've already done." And so we went. I met with the guys. I loved what they had going on. Terry England was the promoter for this promotion for that, Ultimate Championship Wrestling, longest running wrestling organization in the state of Kentucky. And so I went down there. Sean Christopher introduced us. And, the very first night, Terry England seen what Scott Diamond was all about, because I was out there kicking the ass of the referees, security, while my men were taking care of business in the ring. Excuse me. I was throwing refs out. Every time a ref tried to get in and break it up, I was throwing them out. Hell, I think I broke a cane that night over Chris Allen's head. And that's how I met Terry England. Of course, he was upset that I was beating up on his referees. But hey, again, Scott Diamond, the Diamond Cartel, the New Age Horsemen, we were about one thing, and that was doing it our way.
100%. So I'm going to get myself back in here, Scott, if you don't mind. Me and you's got something to talk about before we end this show. But before that, I think Ron Mosley here had a question before. What does Scott see as the future legends of Kentucky wrestling? Who do you see as a future legend of Kentucky wrestling?
I see, of course, I have to name my son. I know you and he are having differences, and apparently right now he and I are having a difference. But Austin has a lot of talent. Look, he's been cutting promos since he was 2 years old, and he was cutting better promos than guys that I've worked in the business 30 years with. He works out in the gym every day. He works out on his wrestling every day, trains every day. So I think he will be one that will be a force to reckon with. here in the state of Kentucky. I think you have a guy like Adrian Alexander. I think he too will be a force to reckon with. There's a young man that chimed in earlier, Chris Crow. I'll tell you, this kid gets it. He gets it. He is on the cusp of making a name for himself. You have other guys, Carson Drake, another Diamond kid. He's over here already doing things with the NWA. I'm very proud of him. He, and I'm very proud. Carson Drake was one of the very few guys that I took out behind the barn, and I screamed at him and screamed at him and screamed at him because I knew there was something special about him, and there certainly was. Now, I've always had a soft heart for collegiate wrestlers because I was a collegiate wrestler as well. I wrestled in high school and I wrestled in the Marine Corps. Carson Drake also won state for wrestling in high school. So I've always got a soft spot for wrestlers, collegiate wrestlers that come in the pro wrestling business. I think, Austin, Adrian, and as I said right there, this kid right here, what can you say about Carson Drake? Again, he's proven it to all of us right now.
Some people here are saying Marty Clay.
Look, you're reading my mind. You're reading my mind. He wasn't one of my kids, but I was on the ground floor with him. John Noble and Kyle Maggart trained him, and then I helped train him on his promos. Marty Clay is another one. Look, he's doing good things. I don't know if I can let this cat out of the bag, but I'm always one of those guys that I'd rather say my bad as opposed to ask permission. Marty Clay, I was on a program not too long back with Booker T, and I gave Booker T a couple of names, and Marty Clay being one of them. And Marty Clay has actually been going to Houston, hooking up with Booker T and working on his promotion.
Yep, he just released photos not too long ago about that, Scott. So I think you're in the clear.
Well, Marty Clay, I've been out of the scene for a couple of months here. I had to step back again with my health issues. But Marty Clay is a cat that's going somewhere. He is definitely going to be a mainstay. Everybody in Kentucky is going to know his name. Hell, everybody in the United States and the world is going to know his name. I could go on all day. You got Omega D. He's out there killing it. Sean Hoodridge, he's out there killing it. Gosh, I always think about these things, Joe, when I'm sitting at my desk, and then when somebody asks me, I kind of get clouded. But we have a lot of great youngsters here in the state of Kentucky. Look, we got some women tearing up the scene here. Ari Alexander, she's another one. She's tearing it up. And a second-generation wrestler as well. Her dad, Vlad, and I know each other very well. So we've got some kids here that, and the biggest thing for me that I've always told the kids that I was training, I want to train them in the traditional style that I learned, because when I retire, of which I have, retire from in-ring work, I do a little mentoring and some managing, very little. But what I wanted to do when I retire is I want to sit back and I want to watch that great product that I was taught, that Memphis style wrestling. And, these kids, they're bringing that to the forefront. Now, do they add a few things? Certainly do. Have I ever seen the great Moolah German suplex somebody out of their boots? No, I haven't, but I've seen Ari Alexander do that. So, we've got some great kids, and I'm just eager to be able to, I'm looking forward to being able to sit down and watch these for myself in the front row.
All right. So last question we have for you, Scott. What do you want the Diamond legacy to be?
Wow, that's a tough one. I've been asked many, many questions, but I've never been asked that one. I would like the Diamond legacy to be remembered as we never went out and, purposely were bullies. We went out and handled business, and we did what we were paid for. The people may not have liked us, but they respected us. And I want them to know and think and remember that Scott Diamond, he may have been a jack weasel a time or two, but I was never a jack weasel without being instigated, without being provoked. Because I just, I've been the bully on many of programs, but I don't just walk up and become a bully just because you got red hair, you got green hair, blue hair, whatever. I become a bully when you cross that line and you step in my ring, because when you step in that ring, it belongs to the Diamond Cartel. It does now. It always has been. And anybody that didn't believe it, they found out the hard way. I don't care if you was in the middle of a match and you were having a match. If I step into the ring, I want you to know that it's time for you to get out of the ring. And that's what I want people to remember. I want them to remember that we fought hard, we kicked ass, we gave 120%, and we always done it our way. And sometimes was there excessive violence? Yes, there was. But it could have been handled differently. But people wouldn't allow us to handle it, let's say, with diplomacy. So, there's either respect or fear. I prefer respect, but I'll take fear. So I guess that's the way that I would like them to remember the Diamond legacy. Scott Diamond was a fair guy, but it was a guy that didn't take no shit. Diamond Cartel were guys that come in, and we would do what we had to do to win, whether it be gold, whether it be a bounty put on somebody's head, or whatever the case may be. We came in and we did exactly what we were paid to do, and we gave the fans their money, whether they loved us or they hated us. We gave them their money's worth, and we did what we were paid to do.
Yeah, and Brandon T. Wilson decided to chime in. Joe, why don't you show Scott how to be a you know what? No, I'm not messing with you, Brandon. You're about as bad as Austin. Sorry, Scott.
Did you have something to say about Scott Diamond?
Do you have anything to say about Scott Diamond, Mr. Wilson? I have to call him that because, well, he's a sponsor. I'm sorry, Scott.
That's quite all right. I do not. But if he has a question for Scott Diamond, I would be glad to hear it. If not, then he's interrupted my interview time. That's very disrespectful.
Yep. So speaking of questions, does anybody have any other questions before me and Scott here move on to a little bit of business here? Give it a minute.
Okay. Joe, while we're taking this minute and letting those questions come in, I also would like to point out I've had somewhat a storybook life. I paid the price for sure. I worked very hard. It just didn't come to me. I had to get out there and I had to fight for it and scratch and scrape and claw my way. But I want to show this to you and your listeners.
Go ahead.
And viewers. This right here, Scott Diamond has done 3 movies. And in this 3rd movie, Corky and Bob Get a Job, Scott Diamond was the Mafia Don. It was a special part written in for me by these directors that I know and producers that I know. I had done a movie with them. And so when they done their 3rd movie, they wanted to write a special part for me. And I'm very grateful. Excuse me. And Ed and Leah, if you're watching, thank you. Billy Crank, thank you for putting me in touch with the right people. But as the Mafia Don, my role was Don Gordacci. And from the film festival, as you can see here, Scott Diamond won Best Villain in a Comedy Drama.
Nice. That is pretty cool, Scott. And Brendan T. Wilson says, no, he likes Scott. He's not an idiot. And I knew this.
Okay. I'll take it.
Thank you, Marcus. Marcus Fon said he knew this interview was going to be outstanding. So thank you, Marcus.
Marcus, look, he's a great guy. He and his wife, they travel all over this place, man. They travel all over to promote wrestling because they are great fans too. And I'll tell you, as a bad guy, I took a picture with 2 people. Marcus Fine was one of them.
Yeah. Actually, you beat the record here for the show. Marcus, whenever we had him on last month for Podcasters Appreciation, he had the most live views, which was 10, and you beat him by 5. So we had 15 live viewers. So thank you all for that. Marcus,
thank you all.
Scott beat the record.
I had said somewhere in conversation before, I have done these things a few times over the years, and on more than one occasion, excuse me, Ryan Mosley on his program, the Final Count. was one of those. I had the distinction of being able to have either the highest ratings on their show, or the most views, the most live guests, the most call-ins. I mean, it's really humbling to Scott Diamond that when I get the opportunity to come out on these platforms, that these people will come out and support me as they have over all these years. So thank everybody that tuned in. Thank everybody for their questions, and of course, thank you, Joe, for having me. And I'm so glad that we could up the ante. Sorry, Marcus.
Now JD's chiming in. Last year, me and Brandon Wolf beat Scott and Austin. How about this year? One last time, Scott and Austin versus JD and Larry. JD, you know as well as I am retired from in-ring competition. No matter what your son says, we'll get to him in just a moment. And I think I know a reason why he's starting in on me, and I want to address that with you as heads of the family here. But no, JD, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm retired. There's no more in-ring competition with me. Now, if you and Scott want to go one-on-one, that's up to you and
JD,
Scott.
I may come out of retirement for that, but hell, brother, we don't have to come out of retirement because, like I said, we're just two old cats, and we've done it before. We can go out in the parking lot, just like I said, we're two old brothers. I'm going to go right on record as saying it. I look at JD as one of my brothers for sure. I've got love and respect for him. But just like brothers, sometimes you got to go out behind the barn and get a little tough love. And JD, we can do that. And then we'll go throw back some cold ones. Mind you, they have to be cold cola, but still.
And James Adams said Scott is a friend, and I have a lot of respect for him. Indeed, I do as well, James.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me because respect is a lot of it. Respect is exactly why I slapped the taste out of my son's mouth a few moments ago. It all, the aura around us has to be, excuse me, that has to be respect, because without it, we're nothing. Without respect, I would come on here and say whatever I wanted to say about your family, your children, and things like that. That's not respect. If I got a problem with JD or I got a problem with you, I'm taking it up with you, not your family. Now, if your family gets in the way, have I been a time or two kind of caught in the crosshairs and had to say some things? Certainly I have. But again, I try to build my platform foremost and always on pride and respect. And it's very important to me. Yeah. So you got to have respect.
Right. And JD says, same thing back at you, brother. Love you.
Much love to me. But hell, I still owe you one, so I'm still ready to go out behind the barn.
Oh, man. Oh, man, that would be something. All right, but let's get down to brass tacks, Scott. This is the reason why I wanted to do this. This is the reason why you wanted to do this. Not only to interview you for the history of pro wrestling, which thank you again for doing that. I think we need to address the issue between me and Austin right now. As heads of
like family. To do that, we can do that.
Yes, sir. I want to go ahead and I want to get this resolved right here, right now, because I think Austin may, I hate to say it, prove the point. Back in August, you guys were at another podcast, and your son called my punt card and said I wouldn't show up, and I showed up. And I not only knocked out one of the co-hosts, which I apologize for that. He said some stuff, and he got what he deserved. But Austin got under my skin. I grabbed him, and you did what any father would do. You got me in the back and proceeded to beat the living crap out of me, along with Austin.
Well, Joe,
I think that's why he has a problem with me, because shortly after that, I announced my retirement due to my knee injury.
I cannot apologize to you for that, because I don't feel sorry for that, and I'll tell you why. Austin is a big boy, and he can fight his battles, but I never expected for a fight to break out, and when a fight breaks out, let's face it, he's still my son.
All right, I would have done the same thing for my daughter. So
it's just. I stopped being a promoter. I stopped being a wrestling personality, and I started being a father. And it's nothing that I thought about. It just come natural. Again, you're a father. The same thing you would do for your child. And so I can say that I hate that happened, but I cannot apologize for it because, again, he is my son.
No apologies needed, sir. My fault. I came in half cocked. Shouldn't have. I know who you are. I still have no respect for your son. I have all the respect for you. But that is probably the catalyst right there. And I think your son is just mad because I will not have a match with him. I'm sorry. If this was before August, without a shadow of a doubt, I would do it. But right now, I can't do it, Scott.
Well, Austin is used to getting what he wants. He's a as I said earlier, I missed a lot of Thanksgiving, birthdays, Christmas, and things like that. And I guess over the years I've tried to make up for that by giving him things, pretty much whatever he's wanted. And maybe that was a mistake on my part, but there's going to come a time, and he's already proven himself. Dad is not always going to be there, and he's going to have to stand up, as he's already done, and continue to stand up and fight his own battles.
Oh, God knows I'm trying.
Jesus Christ.
Not until I get off of this.
Amen.
So, me and you are in agreement with this. There's no blood between the families, just between me and him personally, just to let that out there. So, thank you for squashing that. But Sean Jackson commented here. He gave Scott.
Oh, Sean!
He gave us police escort to the Civic Center and took a pic with he and I was in uniform at the time before I retired from law enforcement.
Yes, I love Sean. Look, I pull over into a gas station. I'm headed to this gig at the Corbin Civic Center, and this was some years ago. And so I pull over into this gas station to get a little petro, and there's these two troopers there, and so I go over and I said, hey, I'm Scott Diamond, and of course Sean, he knew who I was. Oh my gosh, you're Scott Diamond. So I popped the trunk, and I'm signing merch and giving it to him for him and his children. And because he's got some great children too. And so I said, I didn't know Sean at the time. I just met him. And so I said, I'm looking for the Corbin Civic Center. I've got a gig up there tonight. And Sean says, get behind me. I'm giving you a police escort. And brother, I'm talking the little lights, the whole 9 yards, man, the whole 9 yards. Pulls right up, and Scott Diamond that night was the only man to ever have a police escort to the show. Good time, Sean. Nothing but love, brother. And hope you're enjoying your retirement as I am.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Scott, I got to read Mr. Wilson's comments here. He said, "Great job, Scott. Joe deserved it." And he wants to curse me for being a coward. So sorry, Mr. Diamond. My face hit your fist. LOL. Yeah. Hey, you know what, people? You know what? No, he'll end up firing me. Never mind. I was going to show you the true form of Brandon T. Wilson.
Well, you don't want to cut off your money train.
Yeah, I know, but you got a good point. I mean,
sometimes, as I said earlier, we have to do things that we don't want to do, but we have to do that because that's what we do to support our family.
Indeed. You got a great point there, sir. All right. So do we have any other questions or any other stories you want to tell us, Scott, before we go off air?
I just like to say that, now that my doctor has given me the go ahead, I'm going to get back on the road. And I'm not planning any bookings or anything right now. But I am going to jump back in that car and I'm going to be driving around because, look, I love wrestling too. Whether I'm in the ring or I'm in the front row, I love wrestling. And so if you fans see Scott Diamond out there, definitely come holler at me. I'll have pictures and things that I can sign an autograph for you and whatnot. Hell, just come up and say hello, shake my hand.
And Sean Jackson said, "Good times, brother. True story. Get down this
true
way."
Story. True story. Great story. I couldn't done it without you, Sean.
And James Adams says Brandon is a and I quote prick. And Brandon.
Well, that's just not a word. That's a lifestyle. There, see, I'm putting it out there, Mike Bruner.
Joe and Brandon T. Wilson said, "Joe, you're the only person I know will apologize for getting punched in the face." Well, if it's someone like Scott Diamond and I have offended him in any way, you're right. I will apologize to him, unlike you. Anyways, Scott, I appreciate you coming on here, sir. Thank you for helping preserve professional wrestling history. That's my goal with this show, and especially your history. You know what? Actually, I want to send you an invite this Saturday. I'm going to be in Monticello. If you want to, squash this even further, I would love to do this face to face officially.
I would like to do that.
And we'll go ahead and get that done, get it out of
I
the way.
will come to Monticello, and if you shake my hand, we'll squash this whole deal between you and Junior.
You got a deal. You got a deal.
What I tell you, sit there and be quiet until I'm done.
I'm loving this. Sorry, Scott. But no apology.
This is not the way that I control my family. This is not the way, and I don't even want to use the word control. This is not the way I run my family.
Nope.
We don't take care of family business in front of people. It's just not done.
I agree. And Wilson even said, Scott, stop by anytime. Well, I invite him to Monticello. So, Scott, if you want to come.
Brandon, I will see you in Monticello this Saturday night. You send me the address, and Scott Diamond will be there.
If he don't, I sure as heck will. But, folks, this has been the legendary, the one and only, often duplicated, but no one can ever repeat this man's legacy, Scott Diamond. Folks, this has been another episode of the History of Pro Wrestling, the Pro Wrestlers Edition. I am Joe Monroe. This is the one and only four-time Hall of Famer Scott Diamond. And we are out. Thank you all so much.
You've been listening to the Joe Monroe Show with Joe Monroe. Don't forget to like and subscribe.